Welcome back. Good afternoon. My name is Juliette Mon, and I'm the Partnerships Officer at the WFP Caribbean office based in Barbados. And I am very excited to welcome you to the final session where we'll be discussing shock responsive social protection and its fit for the future through a more inclusive and responsive payment mechanism. This final session is a conversation. It is both reflective and forward-thinking. And we're taking into consideration the future use of social protection, considerations for digital solutions that address vulnerability, its contribution to women's empowerment, and ensuring that no one is. This is very important as we consider gender inequality, gender dynamics, and how gender intersects with other points of vulnerability, whether that's associated with age, disability, ethnicities, and other factors. So I'm very pleased to also introduce our panelists who will start off this conversation. And we're very excited to share with you and to hear your comments as well following the discussion. Our first panelist is Isabel Carboni. She is the Insights Director of the Digital Inclusion Team for the GSM Association, an industry organization that represents mobile network operations worldwide. Isabel works on using data to better measure financial inclusion and generate smarter policies, particularly in Africa. She specializes in approaches to learning digital skills and the application of data science for public policy innovation. She is passionate about creating a digital society in which all people can thrive. I like that. I also want to introduce Elizabeth Burgess Sims. She is the WFP Senior Gender Advisor at headquarters, leading WFP's work and strategies for gender and development. Elizabeth also brings a wealth of experience and perspectives, having worked with Global Affairs Canada and regional development banks, supporting integration of gender, particularly in Africa, Asia, and here in the Caribbean. Lastly, I want to introduce two of our colleagues from the Caribbean Development Bank. Mr. Albert Ellis, he's a sociologist for 2 decades with experience in social development, and he currently occupies the position of social analyst within the Social Sector Division Projects Department in the Caribbean Development Bank. He's been instrumental in supporting the bank's efforts in design and implementation of shock-responsive social protection interventions and collaboration with respective countries in the Eastern Caribbean, especially to mitigate the social and economic impacts of the crisis and build resilience of the most vulnerable population groups that have been disproportionately affected. He's joined by his colleagues who also has about as much experience as he has in social development. And she works specifically with the Basic Needs Trust Fund. It is one of the bank's oldest, perhaps, their 43-year-old flagship poverty reduction grant funded program implemented across 9 of the bank's most vulnerable borrowing member countries. At the heart of CDB's strategy is its engagement with its member countries around gender and youth integration, including considerations for that intersectionality that we spoke of. So I wanted to start off the session with a question to you, Isabel. How can social protection take advantage of these digital developments to become fit for the future, particularly in terms of delivery mechanisms, but also overall system design?
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share today with this exciting event. I'd start first by saying that mobiles and mobile internet offer a huge potential for social protection solutions to reach populations at scale. From our research, we know that across low and middle income countries, mobile is how most people access the internet. And it accounts now for around 85% of broadband connections. That was from 2021. And from our latest mobile gender gap report, I just put the link in the chat there. We know that in Latin America and the Caribbean, 72% of women are now using mobile internet. So you can see the scale of which mobiles and mobile internet can reach populations. And both men and women are using their mobiles for a range of different activities to meet the variety of life needs. So that offers an opportunity, a sense of comfort and trust for social protection programs too. And to do that in a way that's more convenient for people. But it's really crucial that any system design takes into account the specific needs of women and their circumstances, their context, their particular challenges, and those of rural populations especially, to ensure that existing inequalities are not exacerbated by a new system or a new solution that comes in. And when I talk about barriers and challenges, I'm thinking particularly of the affordability of an internet-enabled handset. I'm talking about having the digital skills, the functionality to know how to use a mobile, but also safety and security online, which can pose a real barrier for women too.
Thanks for that, Isabel, and some very important considerations to be made. You were very articulate in the affordability, the safety, and of course the functionality and digital literacy, as it were. I'm very interested to hear what some of our other colleagues have to think on the subject. Elizabeth, would you like to chime in?
Thank you very much. And I think the point that Isabel raised just now on the literacy is an important consideration. And when we're looking at digitizing social assistance programs, we need to consider the additional support services that may be needed in order for people to access the services effectively. So this is skills training, this is the awareness raising, this is the access to the handset, as Isabel mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of dimensions there, structural barriers that hold certain groups back from being able to access the technology. So thank you, Isabel. I think you hit those points very clearly. Back to you, Juliet.
Thank you so much, Liz. I wonder whether CDB has confronted this topic in their own work, particularly when we're trying to reach communities, Indigenous communities, for example, or even persons with disability.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you very much for inviting CDB. Very important question. CDB has been treating with this in 2 countries, St. Lucia and Suriname. And in fact, you've preempted or given a good segue for Laverne's intervention when she's going to be talking a bit about this work that the bank is embarking on, the support that we're providing, taking account of the issues that have been raised by my 2 colleagues, Liz and Isabella, around this topic. So we're going to be speaking to it a bit more frontally when Laverne makes her intervention. But it is very important to ensure that as we try to be as inclusive as possible to cohorts of the population, those in the lower quintiles who would be seeking public assistance, that we take account of the issues that have been raised, issue of safety, issue of cybersecurity, the issue of building trust in the system, sometimes recognizing that persons in the lower quintiles, some usually socially excluded, do not have access to higher levels of education, and so on. So you must create a safe space, you must handhold and work closely with them as we trade their social inclusion and their financial inclusion using these systems. Over.
Thank you very much for that, Albert. I actually want to open up a question to you at CDB. Can digitalization support social protection and becoming more responsive, inclusive, and empowering, particularly for vulnerable women? Or will it be a barrier in those efforts? Who really stands to benefit most and who is at risk from losing out?
Thank you, Juliet. I'll go first. I will say yes. The answer is yes to the question. Digitalization can and has supported social protection and becoming more when those are challenged and so on. I want to locate my response, though, within the context of the concept of digital trinity. I'm sure most of us would have heard about it, or the digital infrastructure value chain, which comprises 3 important factors. One is the digital identification systems, two is the mobile communications, which we talked about just now, and three, the digital payment systems. Really, these three are the core of the digital trinity concept. The countries worldwide, including the Caribbean, have invested in developing the digital infrastructure, which include creation of nationwide identification systems, the spread of mobile networks, and we heard just now about the spread of networks across the globe, and also making digital payments available not only for commercial and person-to-person transfers, but also for social transfers. So social registration systems in the region are also serving as part of the platform to deliver social protection programs by linking the national ID card across a range of databases in order to specifically categorize potential beneficiaries using specific criteria. Just want to make a point though about the use of databases, which is absolutely important. And we know that in the region, we've been challenged with some countries having to develop a central beneficiaries registry. And in the absence of that, then you have errors of inclusion and errors of exclusion. I want to make the point though that the utilization of these registries or databases and the communication strategy that goes with it, the communication strategy is very important. That integration has to be located within the context of the interoperability of those systems. The systems are speaking to each other, so persons who are seeking services are not all over the place in the system trying to access the need, to address their needs. So those issues are very, very important for financial inclusion, particularly for those in the categories of the most vulnerable. And I just want to make another point before I allow the Vern to come in. In terms of persons who are likely to lose out, we are seeing in the region that the category of the new poor, those persons who are living or hovering above the poverty line, who are vulnerable, those who have been thrust into poverty as a result of the ongoing pandemic crisis, who are now categorized as a new poor, those persons are at risk because we have to be deliberate in terms of reaching them. The old methods that we would have used before certainly not going to obtain. Countries have been scaling up vertically, horizontally, a number of their social assistance and social protection programs to provide the support for them. Migrants are at risk of not being included, so too are indigenous populations who sometimes to live at the margins of society. So I just wanted to put that in the mix and to put those in terms of the importance of digital literacy, financial inclusion, but also who are likely to lose out in this new dispensation. Over.